There we go.
Got it.
Alan, it's all yours.
Great, thank you. I'll call a meeting of the Roads and Right-of-Way Committee to order for Tuesday, August 17th. I declare we have a quorum present, and away we go. Public comment. Mary, do you want to, anything public you want to comment about, or?
Well, I saw that you had on your agenda the committee opening for Roads and Right of Way, and you mentioned that there was an appearance in Daybreak, and I thought I would add a little background. So I occasionally watch the recordings of your meetings, and I watched the recording of the July meeting, and I was really impressed by the recap that you gave, Alan, of all of the achievements of the Roads and Right of Way Committee. And I thought, well, you know, the year-round community of Nantucket ought to be familiar with that. So I posted that recording in the Nantucket Year-Round Community Group on Facebook with a note that there was a committee opening, and you know that they could look at the recording to see what the group is doing. And then I think a day or two later, it appeared in Daybreak Nantucket. And you know, I know that either we're looking at the same sources, or they're looking at what I post, or you know, there might be a connection there as to one thing leading to another. But I'm really happy to hear that you now have applicants for that open position. And I hope that in some small way, this helped to create that result for you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mary. I was amazed first to see it in Daybreak.
Yeah.
Said something about Roads and Right of Way, and then click. So I clicked it, and boom, it went to the meeting. So I listened, to the whole tape of the meeting, and it's the first time I've ever seen myself as chair leading a meeting, other than what I can see on my monitor here at on Zoom. So I thought it was a good discussion in the meeting, and thank you for getting it out there. I noticed there, last time I checked, there were 4 names, including former fire chief and chief cab driver, who certainly knows something about roads and right of way, and former selectman as well. I think there were, I forget the names of the other candidates. I was familiar kind of vaguely with 2 of them, but
Alan, do you want me to chime in now?
oh, sure, go ahead, Lee.
We have 4 applicants. Both the listing and their individual applications can be found on the select board packet for tonight's meeting. And we have David Wunderlich, and I'm not sure how he pronounces that, but it's W-U-N-D-E-R-L-I-C-H. He writes that he's only been on island for 2 years, but that he's very much in favor of assisting. Number 2 is Campbell Sutton. Campbell came to one of our meetings earlier. Bruce Watts, whom you've mentioned, and Rob Rennie, our newly appointed assessor.
Exactly.
Their applications can all be read on the select board site.
Well, excellent. Thank you again, Mary, for getting that out there. It certainly yielded a result. I think that of them, as I say, I know 2 of the candidates, and I think either one would be, very well qualified. But well, we'll see how it goes. I'll read the applications for the other 2, and then I'll look forward to the questioning by the select board. We'll maybe feed a couple of questions to one of the selectmen or select persons to see. So anyway, good news.
You're welcome, Alan. And if you'll indulge me for another public comment that's not on your agenda, just a reminder to the committee that the Coastal Resilience Plan is coming to a swift conclusion. It's due at the end of September. And we are having information-packed meetings now with the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee, and some of the proposed solutions would obviously affect roads. So I would encourage you, if you have the time, to review the previous presentation, which was August 10th, That in particular had some proposed solutions and none of them being advocated for at this point. These were all potential multiple solutions to various issues. But certainly those are something that we would appreciate the committee's input on and the public in general. We're definitely still taking public input on the coastal resilience plan. So just a heads up for those. And we are meeting almost constantly now with Arcadis at every meeting to get updates on what they're developing for the coastal resilience plan.
My understanding, I did see the Envision Nantucket, I think the Remain program. I saw there were two parts of it. One a couple of months ago, or a month, anyway, a while ago, and then the one about a week or so ago. And I was very impressed with the closing comments that the PIN, and I've forgotten his name, but he was the one of the instructors for the PIN group.
Would that either be Marty Hilton or Bob Miklos?
Oh, I think it was Bob. Yeah, because I know Marty. Marty had worked with a land bank on an issue that on Washington Street. And in his closing comments, he took some questions, and at the very tail end of the program, someone asked about, well, what changes have you seen over 10 years, and what would you recommend, and so on. And his comments really struck home as to what's going on in the community. So I'm looking forward to getting, as I say, it was at the tail end of the tape. I assume that those questions will still be there. Now the Arcadis project, is that separate from the Bluff project from the?
Yes. Yes, so we're at the tail end of a year-long project to do an island-wide, and also actually Tuckernuck and Muskegon included, so county-wide coastal resilience plan. And this spring, I think it was, the select board added a second project for Arcadis to look at the situation on the bluff. So Arcadis is performing two projects. They're running sort of in parallel. We're obviously both well aware of what the other is doing, but they have two different objectives. They do happen to have the same delivery date, end of September. So we'll see how that all comes out.
Good. Well, thank you for bringing that forward, because that obviously is something that is going to have a long-range impact on roads and right-of-way and public access. So thank you again for bringing that forward.
Thank you for the opportunity, Alan.
Okay, next item, approval of minutes from Tuesday, July 20th, our last meeting. Any errors, omissions, corrections? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Alan, I'll have to abstain because I was not at that meeting.
Right, okay. So motion by Bill, and I need a second from, thank you, Rick. Okay, second by Rick. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Alan, we're on Zoom.
We'll
Okay.
do a roll call.
Lee,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
and Ed. Ed, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Good. We just had a motion to accept the minutes from our July 20th meeting.
I,
Aye, okay, and chair votes aye, so those minutes carry unanimously. Okay, on to item 3. And Ken, that you might be of some assistance here. The reorganization of the DPW has some major implications, or maybe I shouldn't put it that way. However, it is going to be reorganized. Right now, there seems to be no organization there. And it does have an impact on roads and right-of-way. It has an impact on many of the projects that we have been pursuing. And it also has quite an impact on the cemetery commission, which now it's a whole other situation. So Ken, can you enlighten us as to what's going on in the DPW and what impact it will have on the various projects, like, for example, Lover's Lane, and the other road projects?
Yeah, well, what town administration is doing is getting together with the outside consultants and putting together a basically an understanding of all of the projects that Rob was involved with. So I've been asked to pull together all the information on the projects that I was assisting him on with. And so that includes Lover's Lane road work. It includes discussions with respect to the State Forest Trail. It includes any of the road projects that Rob was working on. We're at the stage of gathering the information, and that's necessary in order to be able to have a better understanding of the role that would be expected to be put in place for the new director of the DPW in terms of what are those responsibilities and how are they structured, the same as or perhaps differently from the way that they were structured before. So we're in an interim situation right now where we're trying to cover as much as we can in terms of making sure that things don't fall apart, but and trying to make sure that we meet critical dates relative to stuff that needs to be done. But the problem, aside from the fact of that Rob left unexpectedly, there was a second problem that hasn't been addressed as well, and that is that at the town meeting and at the ballot box, a number of initiatives were all put forward and approved, and there clearly is no staff in place, or even before was in place, to be able to address all of them. So the issue with respect to making determination as to prioritizing those is part of what town administration has to come and make recommendations to the select board in order to be able to start to develop a priority. So we're at a stage of gathering all the information, putting together a clear understanding of what the projects were, where we are in those projects, and then how to be able to move forward and who would be responsible for them on an interim basis until someone has been able to be found to be able to run the DPW area and to start filling out the slots that are open in that, because there are, as everyone is aware, a significant number of vacancies, even at the operational level. Part of which because of at the time of Rob leaving, but also part of it because it is very difficult to find people to fill a lot of the slots, because free enterprise is in fact offering a much more attractive package to a lot of those people. So that's sort of the status of where it is, as best as I can describe for you.
Great, thank you. Wow. I don't suppose you have any sort of a projected timeline when some of these matters would be addressed. I know that hiring staff is a real challenge, particularly in this market, and so on.
I don't have a timeline other than to indicate that it is the highest priority from town administration's point of view in terms of addressing those. And so, in fact, on my work chart, it has moved to the top of the list in terms of making sure that I have a clear understanding and the ability to in fact interact with the various consultants so that we don't lose any of the momentum that is there, but also wanting to make sure that we understand the direction that the momentum is going, so that is consistent with, in fact, where the priorities are, because a number of the consultants work we're working on a number of different projects, same consultants, different projects within the town. And so there needs to be an understanding of which becomes more important in terms of the timetable.
Great. Well, thank you for that update. It's reassuring to know that this is at the top of mind of the select board.
Yes.
Because it's amazing to me. I mean, this is such a key department, overseeing so many different areas, so many different projects. And, to have a major disruption like this is stunning. I'm sure that the town administrator has shares that feeling. Okay, I don't have any other specific questions for Ken. Does anyone else have anything before we let Ken go back to his? That's why I called on you first, Ken.
Right, appreciate that.
I wanted. Okay, any other questions for Ken before we move on to the next item? Nope, that's all right.
Right, and that would include all the other items on the agenda. If there are questions on any of those, because if not, then I would like to be able to excuse myself, but.
Right, yeah, that's what I intended
Yeah,
here.
okay.
So again, any comments from the commission, the committee members? Okay, seeing none, Ken, have a good afternoon. Again, thank you. Yeah.
I got back an hour of my day. Thank you very much. All right.
Okay, next item on our agenda. Well, actually, as I just said, when I first heard about what was going on, and again, nobody seems to know why or how this all came about, or at least none of the sources that I've come across have found a reason for this. I don't know what else to say other than it's really it's having a major effect because there are so many projects that are ongoing under the mantle of the DPW, even things like the road edge mowing, mowing the cemeteries, picking up the trash and, all those other things, as well as the big projects, the road projects and so on.
Alan, this is Lee.
Yes, Lee.
I had a major freeze problem and I haven't heard anything since you asked Ken for his comments. I apologize. I don't know what happened. Did anybody else have a freeze or a problem?
You just disappeared and came back, but I did not see the record light go out, so I'm assuming that kept chugging away.
Okay, that's good, because then I should be able to find it.
Yeah, I noticed the same thing. And Lee, were you there for the start of Ken's?
No, just the introduction.
Okay, well, he gave a recital as to what it is that the town is doing in terms of trying to fill in all the gaps and so on. Nothing particularly concrete other than saying that it's top of mind for the select board and the town manager, trying to get that department back up on its feet somehow. He did, the implication that I got from what he said, this is a major disruption in terms of the many projects and the many activities that the DPW does. So anyway, yeah, I noticed also the record button was on while there was just a blue square in your spot there. So
Okay, Ken, Lee here. Two comments, whether they're of any value or not, I don't know. Steve Arsenault has a lot of experience in the military as a project manager. That's one possibility. Chuck Larson, our administrator's project manager, is licensed as an engineer. I have no idea why he shifted from DPW just a few days after he got here. But that's another thought. And quite spontaneously, I heard some people who are connected to DPW say, why don't we take the three physical activities, DPW, sewer, and water, put them in one department and have joint leadership from David Gray and Mark Willett. So for what it's worth, Ken, if anybody's listening.
Yeah, let me comment on that. I've talked with Mark, and he mentioned that he had had a conversation with the town manager along with David Gray. And both of them have said, look, we have our hands full. They're not interested, basically. What they did say is that they would be glad to help out in any way that they can. For example, on Lover's Lane, they're planning to put water and sewer along that route. The water company is also planning to run water out to the airport. And they're working right now on developing the route that they're going to take to get out to the properties to the west of the airport that have been impacted by the PFAS situation. And there are other projects. The Wyatt Drive is another project the DPW was involved in, providing access from the new apartment, the affordable housing complex that they're building over there in Amelia Drive. And there are various other projects, road projects and so on. So between the Water Commission and the Sewer Department, they do have personnel and who are very capable of doing that kind of the kind of work that's necessary. They have surveyors, they know how to work the survey equipment, and other things. So they have volunteered to assist. In terms of Steve, I've tried to contact him several times, and I haven't received a response. I assume he is pretty overwhelmed at the moment. And as far as the other guy, the project supervisor, I remember when he was hired along with Rob, and they were going to be director and assistant director, and somehow that didn't work out. So within a couple of days that he was named project supervisor. So anyway, well, that's what we know so far, which is not much about what's going on over at the DPW. As I say, I think it's really stunning that something like this can happen. Yes, Lee?
When we're all done with DPW, I will ask about transportation planning.
Oh, okay. All right, I think we're done with DPW. So transportation planning, as you know, as Nat said at our last meeting, they have an interview had an interview scheduled on the 12th for a potential God, I've gotten the plan, not the planning person, but the person who does the bike paths and so on.
I think that's transportation manager is the title now.
Yeah, that's it. So I tried to get a hold of Nat to see if he had any information, whether in fact there was an interview that happened on the 12th or not, and I couldn't reach him. Mary, do you have any idea if they interviewed transportation planner?
I have not heard, Alan, but I do know that our NPNEDC meeting that was supposed to be this, I guess, yesterday, had to be canceled for some particular reason. So I don't know if that reason, possibly COVID related, affected the interview as well. I haven't heard an update, so I'm sorry, I don't have anything for you.
Okay. So Ken addressed the road projects, the Lovers Lane project and the Hinsdale project, both of which were approved at town meeting along with the financing. And basically, Lee, for your benefit, he said that those projects are still under, they're underway. It's just that everything right now is on hold. They are determining priorities. The select board is determining priorities as to which of these projects are, because there are contracts that are let, there's the money that needs to be handled and all that sort of thing. So I imagine that they are in the thick of trying to sort all of that out. So other than that, I have no further information other than once we get back rolling, that those projects will be completed. The next item, number 5, the sidewalk projects. Again, I tried to get information about the recommendation that we sent to the select board 2 months ago regarding the missing sidewalks at Pleasant Street, Prospect Street, North Liberty Street and Cliff Road. And I still haven't found out what, if anything, they have done with that recommendation that we submitted to them. Yes, Bill?
I don't know if you went down Pleasant Street, down past where Remimbus used to be, but that stretch there with the trees,
Yes.
they took down one of those big giant ones the other day and cleared that section out. So I believe that was part of the process.
I know that there was a meeting with the property owners, and actually there have been several meetings with the property owners. And I was at a meeting with Andrew Vorse, with Rob and the property owners. And this was some time ago. And I know there have been subsequent meetings down there. So again, the property owners are amenable to I think what they're looking for is a plan from the town that they can subscribe to get that missing piece of sidewalk in there.
I mean, something obviously, there's some sort of agreement because it was town crews that took the thing down.
Bill, where was this street?
Almost across from Back Street, there's a section there with those big giant trees
This is on Pleasant Street.
encroach out into the road.
Where that little Quaker cottage sits out in the middle of a field there.
Right. It's before you get to the Williams Lane intersection.
Jill and Towski's family.
Yeah.
And Bill, you say a tree was taken down, or you're concerned about existing trees?
No, they took it down.
Okay.
There's
Well, there's still existing trees there.
yeah, the question was how to get a meandering sidewalk around these
Right.
giant 4 or 5 foot base trunks.
Right.
And one less to get around.
I believe one of the things they were looking at was going into the property
Yeah.
inside the trees and coming back out onto the sidewalk on the other side. So again, I know that they were working on trying to find a solution, both the property owners, and that's a good thing. I mean, the fact that the property owners are engaged in a positive way to get that sidewalk. I think they realize what a hazard, living there, they probably realize what a hazard that is. So, okay, so oh, as far as sidewalk projects, item number 5, where we are, the next stage of the downtown sidewalk project that was scheduled to begin this fall, I believe there were several pieces to it. I had encouraged Rob to concentrate on the downtown sidewalks. That was, of course, the origin of our study. And all you have to do is walk down Center Street or Federal Street or Broad Street or Main Street on the south side, and what the issues are there. Theoretically, they set aside a total of $5 million. I believe they've spent approximately $1 million of that in the work that they've completed so far on Straight Wharf, Easy Street, Broad Street, South Water, and a bit of Washington Street. So my hope is, yes, Ed?
I'm sorry to interrupt, Alan, but also include, they actually did some work last winter on some of the upper Main Street sections near the Bricks and the Blue Victorian and whatnot, and that part on the opposite side of the street from Hillary, let's put it that way. But they did do some work in traversing some of the root damage to the sidewalk. And you'll notice it almost looks like handicap access because it kind of goes up and down a little bit, but it's in fine shape.
Oh, really? I just walked up and down Main Street. I went from town up to the Civil War Monument, up one side and down the other.
Well, it was a side on with the the Bricks and the Blue Victorian, and it was primarily around the some of the very large trees that are there. In fact, they even put some like borders around it, wooden kind of, not landscape ties, but just wood borders around some of the tree roots themselves, and repaired brick into it with a flat surface there.
Right.
I assume it was them. It looked like DPW workers working there. I'm sure it wasn't individual homeowners, I don't think.
Yeah. Lee?
I'll just make a comment to Ed. The DPW does have a cobblestone and brick crew. What Alan was referring to were the major projects that would be done by a contractor. So we've had the first contractor, he's already mentioned that. And the real question is whether or not the second contract will stay on track. Meanwhile, DPW, and I've seen them working in sections, trying to get rid of the worst tripping hazards.
Which is a lot of the problem on Federal and some of these central commercial streets is, I guess it could be DPW projects. A few of them might need Victor Brandon just for speed's sake, but who knows? Yeah.
I've got to say, I think Victor Brandon does excellent work. Let me just put it that way. Seems as though it's very stable. I did watch while they were doing the work, and they were very careful about the underlayment, which is really the key is to the stabilization of the surface, the bricks and so on.
Victor did the, for what it's worth, did the handicap access to the third retail commercial unit under 30 Main Street Union Lodge. So that's who we ended up getting to do that project. And you'll notice the street obviously, comes up, and makes a bow up, but it's perfectly accessible handicap wise. So.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I had followed that project also, and I think it's a vast improvement over what was there. Again, I would really like to see the town focus on those downtown sidewalks. You know, Main Street and you know, the other streets are important, but where the people are is downtown. I mean, you know, and I find as much walking as I do, and I'm usually out in the moors or on, you know, not firm surfaces and so on, I find most of the time when I trip over things or feel is when I'm walking in town. I mean, it's just, I don't know what it is, but
I'm surprised that, quite frankly, we haven't gotten to litigation over some of the, it's so bad in some areas. You could collect spare bricks under trees and probably have a pallet of bricks at the end of the day. I mean, there's some people throwing these bricks randomly out of the way when they pop up.
exactly. Yes, Lee?
This is an off-the-record comment, but Ed, it's my understanding that there's any number of cases of people suing the town because they fell or hurt themselves. I don't have any more data or facts than that.
Hopefully it wasn't on our sidewalks, but I'm sure there is plenty of that too, yeah.
Well, what precipitated this project in from our committee is I was walking from the Athenaeum over to the post office, and I tripped and fell and almost broke my glasses and, you know, banged my elbow and stuff like that. And it was, again, something that, you know, shouldn't have been there, a stone out of place and so on. So I know that the select board is overburdened at the moment with the DPW and so on, but where they have contracted out, my hope is that, well, I guess they'll need somebody from the town to supervise the project. Maybe that's where the project supervisor can step in and handle that. But I'll make that inquiry of the select board as to what their plan is going forward with the downtown sidewalks. Yes, Bill?
I was talking with somebody that's dealing, researching on a citizen on PFAS, and they've been talking with Chuck, who ended up, he's got a couple of different projects, as we noted, and he actually ended up having to send some apology letters to people because he is so buried, he hasn't even had a chance to respond to a lot of emails. And evidently this, a significant amount of Rob's work was kept in his plans were kept either in Rob's head or in Rob's desk. And so I think there's going to be this tremendous backlog that builds up as people try to find out everything that's going on. And then they're going to have to reprioritize, and things such as the contract you're talking about that's already been granted. You know, we may have to keep sticking our nose in that to ask, you know, how that's going, because that may not even be in the scope of things that Chuck and them are finding out, because it was already awarded. So I hate to say it, but I think with all of the different projects going on and so little knowledge about them, we got the landfill contract that's, you know, imminent. We got the PFAS thing. It's just, you can, there's probably a good dozen big money time projects.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it sort of echoes what we heard early in the meeting with disruption at the DPW. I would describe it as being of crisis proportions, but you know, far be it for me to cast a judgment like that. But anyway, that's definitely a personal opinion. All right, so anyway, in terms of sidewalks, that's all the information that I have at this point. I do I do have a few connections, where I try to find out this information as to what's going on in the town, but so far, everyone is really focused on the DPW and all the ongoing projects that they oversaw. So, yes, Ed.
I'm not sure if this is totally our purview, but it's definitely relating to sidewalks. And I've gotten a number of comments from people that are here in the summer, in particular, that have houses in the town area. Like when they've done some of these sewer projects and town water projects with the new mains, I'll use North Liberty Street as an example. The sidewalks, if you were to drive down North Liberty Street right now, you'll see a combination of no sidewalks, some of them privately put in, including myself, who put one in years ago, asphalt, concrete, brick again. In other words, it's a prime opportunity to, if we want them all to look like brick, to make them brick. If we want them to look like asphalt, well, which I don't, but perhaps people do, or concrete, then we'll make them concrete. But it looks like when you go to shingle a house and you're putting new windows in and you decide not to shingle the face of the house, and it looks like you've come up with some disease all of a sudden. So it's not, and this is the historic district, and across the street in the historic district. I mean, it's such a mishmash that I've heard a number of comments. It's like, what went on here? Did they run out of bricks and have to pour asphalt or pour concrete, or So I thought I'd just pass that on for what it's worth.
Yes, I've noticed the same thing. I've received several complaints through the water company about the paving on North Liberty Street, how it took so long to do, and that's
Still not finished.
no, that was
The top coat.
yeah, exactly. But so anyway, as a result of those comments, I went up and down the street. I walked up one side and down the other, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't think that the sidewalk work was contracted out. It certainly wasn't contracted out to Victor. If they, in fact, I don't know that they did at Eastside. They must have done some sidewalk somewhere because they had to go. But
He did the asphalt ones.
yeah.
But
Anyway, yeah, no, I agree. It is definitely a mishmash, and with a piece of missing. Yes, Mary?
For just background, it may have been the case, I can't speak specifically about Nantucket, but I know this from other municipalities, that the homeowners were responsible for installing sidewalks originally, not the town. And that's the reason that they are of so many different materials, is because each homeowner had a choice of what they wanted to put in and what they could pay for. And it may be the case now that the town is responsible for them, or it may not, I don't know. But that's an explanation of how it got to be where it is. Not that the town didn't have money or ran out of materials, or the town wasn't responsible in the first place for installing the sidewalks in many cases. That would be my guess. Again, I'm not speaking specifically about Nantucket necessarily.
Yeah, I agree. And I remember when the town used to have a program where they would supply the bricks if the homeowner would pay for the installation of them. And there were several properties around town that did that. But I think you're right that the homeowners were asked to do their own work. Yes, Ed?
I think from my experience, personal experience, I think a number of the sidewalks didn't exist. And when they did exist, a lot of times what they did is, quite frankly, they used the cheapest material, which at the time was asphalt.
Yeah.
Or gravel in some cases, but asphalt. When I went to replace my own deteriorated asphalt driveway in front of my house and the next door neighbor's house, the town kindly they said we used to share in the cost and used to pay for half the bricks. But they gave me 1 pallet of bricks.
That's it. Yeah.
They gave me 1 pallet of bricks, which I had to go out to the DPW and get, but that was out of, it took, the project probably took 5 or 6 pallets to do, but that was their contribution anyway. So, but at least they let me do it. And quite frankly, I made my sidewalk a little bit wider than most because I have young children that I figured if they wanted to run around on the sidewalk in front of the house, they'd have, they wouldn't bump into each other or something. I don't know. But that's my history. And a neighbor down the street got their sidewalk immediately after mine done because they had I wish I could have thought of this. They had an elderly parent or grandparent, and they said they thought that the deteriorating asphalt was going to make them trip. So it was amazing. Within about 3 weeks, they had a brand new sidewalk, compliments of the town, and it was brick. So I don't know, maybe that's what it took to get the right, sidewalk.
Exactly. The land bank at our property on North Liberty Street there, when we put in the little parking area, we did the sidewalk along the whole thing, and we did it in brick, of course. And so, yeah, I guess the town doesn't have, anyway. All right, well, enough on sidewalks for the moment. I was trying to think of other concerns related to the DPW restructuring, and I think we pretty much covered that. We know that the town is, I won't say desperately looking, but is looking to find someone to take over the DPW. And again, as Ken mentioned, the staffing, my understanding is that there are between 8 and 15 positions that are now vacant. I know the administrative staff that was in the office that did a lot of the paperwork, I think they are all gone. I don't think anyone of the old, I won't say the old staff because they're all pretty young, remaining. Yes, Ed?
I might have a suggestion. I don't know for what it's worth. There's a lot of boots on the ground needed supervisory jobs in the DPW in particular, but like medicine, like a lot of things like us right now sitting on Zoom, a lot of this stuff could be done like telemedicine, or maybe we could find a consultant or expert to lead certain departments that actually doesn't live on Nantucket, that their job is a Nantucket job and they're doing it from elsewhere. And then they have people that are supervisors or boots on the ground or whatever they need to do it that way. I think the town's going to have to move to a model that incorporates a bit of this.
Good point. Yes, Mary?
We're actually already there. There are a number of positions that are filled by people who not only don't live on Nantucket, they don't live on the Cape either. I won't name them all. I don't think there's any point to that, but there are probably half a dozen at least to start. People who don't live on the island but have town positions. So there is quite a bit of that going on already.
Well, again, that's not, I won't say not our problem, because it is kind of, it directly relates to the work that to the advice we give. And I have to keep reminding myself that we make recommendations to the select board. Okay, the Daybreak Nantucket, we mentioned at the very beginning of the program. Again, I was surprised and delighted to see it. I mean, I after watching it, I thought, gee, that was a productive meeting. And sometimes I get to the end of the meeting and I think to myself, I look at my notes and I say, well, wait a minute, now what did we accomplish or what did we do? But I felt that the discussion, particularly the roundabout discussion, was valuable and will do some good. We'll definitely be talking further about roundabouts, perhaps once we get a transportation planner on board. we can see if he would like to be an ex officio member of our committee, and as Mike Burns was, and that we can offer whatever suggestions that we have through him. Yes, Mary.
Ellen, since you brought it up, if you'll indulge me again with a public comment. I had a little bit of a concern watching the discussion about roundabouts and potential locations. I'm going to speculate, because I don't know for sure, that most of the people on the committee have mainly the experience of driving rather than cycling or walking or jogging or having children or living, in particular in the Bartlett Road school area or being on the school staff. And so my caution is that you might want to consider the perspectives of other people before you make recommendations to the select board about how roads should be developed or used. That was my main concern after watching the discussion, was that it was a limited perspective that was being offered.
Good, thank you for that. I don't do any social media. I don't do Facebook. I have the only thing I do on, oh God, I can't even remember what the other one is. But so I don't do any of that sort of stuff. So thank you for that perspective. I do hear via the grapevine, usually through the land bank. There are several people in the land bank who do listen to media and so on, because they're concerned about the image of the land bank and so on. And so that's your point is well taken, Mary. I'm assuming that when the select board does have the public hearings dealing with the roundabout, and we know that there will be public hearings for those, that there'll be ample opportunity for people to express their opinion. One of the valuable things I felt about our conversation last month was that perspective about the roundabouts or the rotaries, depending on what you call them. One of the key things is you have to be careful where the pedestrian crossings are placed. That's one of the weaknesses with both the main rotary and with the roundabout. They get jammed up because you have crosswalks right on where vehicles are looking left and right to see where the traffic flow is and so on. And again, I think it was Ed's suggestion that we really do need to wait until we have an engineer, somebody who really knows about planning these structures for safety, because the whole idea of these roundabouts is not to speed up traffic, but is to keep the traffic flowing and to have people paying attention to what they're doing. Again, every time I go up and down Surfside Road, particularly now during the summer when people are coming and going, it's been backed up all the way from Fairgrounds Road down to that three-way stop sign coming this way, and usually backed up from the high school going the other way, because it's such an idiotic thing to have three, you have three directions of cars. People aren't sure who has the right of way. You have a bike path right in front of one of the, coming down Bartlett Road and so on. So you're absolutely right. There does need to be lots of public input, and I'm sure there will be. I just want to be sure that the message gets across that rotaries and roundabouts are not designed just to speed up traffic, but when properly designed, they enhance the safety of the pedestrians, bicyclists, and so on, as well as the car traffic. So good point. Yes, Lee?
Backing up to an earlier comment of yours, Alan, ex officio means by virtue of the office, and transportation planning is an ex officio position. So if and when we get such a person, let's tell her or him that ex officio, they're a member of our committee.
Right. Well, yeah, I think there's a general way to do that, probably through the select board or whatever to,
Through Andrew, I would say through Andrew.
yeah, right, or through Andrew. Yeah, that would be a good point. Okay, let's see, roundabouts, rotaries, we just talked about. Other streets without sidewalks. I noticed Parker Lane, which is just down at the other end of between Fairgrounds and Hooper Farm Road, is another one that doesn't have a sidewalk, and there's a fair amount of traffic that goes on that one.
Alan, what's the street?
Parker Avenue, I believe it is,
On Parker Lane.
or Parker Lane. Yeah, there we go. And we had talked last month about, to see if anyone had any ideas of other sidewalks. Again, that seems to, well, we'll keep that on our list of agenda items here to discuss in the future. But I think right now we have another priority issue. Yes, Lee?
Alan, I just want to put this into your thinking. There is a sidewalk along North Beach Street leading out to the jetties,
Yes.
but it's not very wide. It is a pedestrian sidewalk. And because of the volume of traffic that's going out to jetties, there are bicycles all over that road.
Right.
And I worry about people headed to the beach wearing flip-flops and shorts and no helmets and without the benefit of a bike path. So while there is a sidewalk on North Beach, based on the heaviness of its use, let's put that on our list for something that should be done.
Right. Good. I do have that written down on my list here. I think you mentioned it at our last meeting.
I did.
Ed?
I totally agree with Lee. A number of these tributary sidewalks and well, definitely the main sidewalks on these roads, have become really bike paths by de facto bike paths, really. And that's somewhat inevitable, especially since no one seems to force the riding your bike on the sidewalk fines or penalties or whatever. And they're often in the wrong way directions too, but for what it's worth, instead of walk your bike down the one way, they ride your bike on the sidewalk down the wrong way too. So, I mean, that seems to be a common thing that happens here. So I guess we almost need to discuss bike paths at the same time we discuss sidewalks in a number of these areas. So.
Good. Yeah, good point. One of the things that came out of our discussion at July about the rotaries and roundabouts was the fact that we really do need to converse with the bicycle and pedestrian and the traffic safety committees, because they, I think between the three of us, we're all interested in pedestrian safety and of course public access, which is our main interest. So yeah. All right, so there will be further discussion on those roads, on sidewalks and all the other things. Let's hope that the town manages to find some personnel to get the DPW back up and running, and also a planning transportation planner. I will be following this very closely. And if there's any breaking news, if we don't read it first in the Compass or Daybreak, I'll try and get it out to you. Mary, you seem to be in a key position to hear about these things. So anyway, I really appreciate you bringing those forward. So thank you. Okay, we're at the end of our agenda. Does anyone have anything else, any new, old, or other business to come before us? Yes, Phil?
One thing that I thought the last couple of months, I've been working pretty closely with Nathan Porter on the maps
Yes.
and the access, the beach access around the island. And Lee, I don't know whether you call this ex officio or we'll make up a term or something, but I think it would be very helpful to have Nathan available to us, not necessarily at every meeting, but have him somebody that we could say, okay, we need you next Tuesday or something, because he has some experience and background that I think would be very helpful to this committee.
That's a good point. I find Nathan is very accessible. Even though he doesn't live on island, he commutes back and forth and he's here, I forget, I think it's 4 days a week or whatever his schedule is. But I've always, anytime I've called and left a message on his line, he's always gotten back to me. Whenever I've asked him for particular maps and so on, he's been very good about that. But yeah, he's I think a very important person, because he's the one who has the detail of the maps showing where the public ways are and the private ways. And he has a separate file of those where he's not sure. And those are.
Well, I think he also knows where the inconsistencies are.
Yes.
Because a lot of people talk about these GIS maps like they're they're the final word, and they are not.
Exactly.
And he understands them. And the good news is, as I understand it, I mean, he's been in this position for about 7 to 10 years. So he really has some of the history too. He's just a lot of it. So it was very interesting as we were digging into it, we were finding various inconsistencies, and he was able to explain to some extent why there were the inconsistencies, and where another set of maps was actually where you wanted to go to get that answer. So I don't know how we would like to, how formalized or whatever it is. I certainly don't think we need to, sentence him to sit through every one of our meetings, but it would be helpful to have him as a resource.
Great, good. I'll speak with.
Alan?
Oh, yes, Rick?
No, you go ahead, Alan. I just wanted to add another sort of committee comment when you're ready.
Oh, okay. As far as Nathan, again, I know he's pretty busy, but I'll invite him to a meeting. Again, I'm reluctant to have him sit through a whole meeting if there's just one sort of slice of information that he might want to do. But one of the things, as far as our committee is concerned, once we find an inconsistency or something that is unknown, if it deals with access, public access, particularly access to the water, one of the things that we as a committee can do is to make a recommendation to the select board that should be taken, depending on the circumstances and so on. So,
and he has, as I think I sent to you, Alan, he has a whole, he sent me a whole file, which I think I forwarded to you, of the perimeter of the island.
yes,
And where every beach access it was. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
yes,
I mean, frankly, I think part of our job ought to be to visually verify over the course of a year or 2 years or whatever, that each of these so-called beach access things actually exist.
oh, good point. That would be a good winter project.
Yeah, I mean, because the fact of the matter, we know with, how real estate being as dear as it is, if a new homeowner has the ability to tell his landscaper, put a hedge in there, why not?
Yeah, exactly. Good point. All right, well, I'll add that to the list. Yeah. I have seen the list that Nathan has of the public access points. So, good. All right, Rick?
Yeah, just to sort of follow up on Phil's comment, I read your annual report, Alan, for 2021, and it's instructive and mostly I was focusing on the first paragraph
Mhm.
because I think that talks about what is our primary mission. At
Yes,
least I think of as our primary mission, and it's public access
right.
to the water around the island. And so I think indeed we need to find a way, all for roads and sidewalks, but if we don't do public access, we're not focused as much as we could be on our, what I think is our primary mission. And Nathan could be very helpful. And if he has a list, I would respectfully request that he supply that list to the committee, like, when he has a chance, or if you want to ask him, or I'll ask him. It's a public document, I'm sure.
Rick,
And
he
that
has
would be
given
very
that to me.
helpful.
Rick, he's given that to me and I'll send it to everybody. Yeah, that's what I
that's
sent
good.
Alan.
Yeah, great.
I think you would be very advisable to share that with all the committee members.
Mhm.
And I think it'd be very helpful. Also, we could have a layer in the GIS. I think we've talked about this, and all public access points marked, and maybe they're already done, but that's important. So thanks, Alan.
Great. Mary?
If I could request that you copy Vince Murphy on that list of public access points to the water. I would hope that as part of the Natural Resources Department, he has that, but I think that could also be an important piece of information for the Coastal Resilience Plan. And I would love to hear that you are verifying those access points. And if there are opportunities for increased public access, that's something that we hope will be worked into the Coastal Resilience Plan. As we see projects that might need to be done, ways to improve public access is certainly part of that goal.
Exactly. Good. And you probably remember years ago, that was really the public access has always been the focus of the Roads and Right-of-Way Committee. That's what led to the markers, the monuments that we placed, the public way monuments around the island and so on. And by the way, that project is still has some markers that need to be placed. The problem we've run into is physically those bounds weigh about 400 pounds, and trying to work out a way to get those around. When I talked with Rob while he was still on board, he said that the DPW would be glad to putting those in, but all right, well, I'll definitely follow up on that. And Phil, you'll send a copy of the list that you've got to all the committee members.
Yep.
And will you add Vince Murphy and Mary to the list?
Okay, could you send me their email addresses?
The email addresses?
Yeah, for Vince and Mary.
All right.
Bill, Vince will follow the town protocol, vmurphy@nantucket-ma.gov.
I'll send a request to you, Alan, so you can just forward that to Phil. I don't know if I have Phil's email, but that might be the easiest way to go.
Rick, to answer your question, what I will be sending around has got a little thing that shows where every so-called access point is to the beach. At least as it is on the GIS system.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it actually exists. That's what the GIS system thinks it is.
Right. And remember that many of those, there are 51 or 52 markers around the island that say beach access point. Those are for the emergency services. Not all of those are public. Some of those, I believe, are on private property. So, that's something we'll have to.
Well, I certainly think there were more than 45 or 50 little dots around the island.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I've seen that in the map itself. So, all right. Well, we'll get that information out to the committee member.
Okay. No, that could be a good project for this winter, when
Yeah,
when
exactly.
everybody leaves.
Exactly. No, I
Which
was
isn't going to happen.
having a reason to go out and check out the beaches and
No
things.
traffic.
Yeah, particularly during the winter. Okay, is there anything else to come before the committee this afternoon? again, I thank you for your indulgence. Doesn't feel as though there's any, a lot of forward motion here, but anyway, I'm appreciate your attendance, and Mary, thank you for attending and bringing forward to the meeting the things that you did. So thank you again. Okay, if there's nothing else to come before the commission, I declare we are at the end of our agenda and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you,
Right.
everybody. And thank you for indulging. It was my computer that froze. I don't know why.
We'll look for you on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, Lee.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
All right.